You know that feeling when you see somebody playing a banjo and it's like the coolest thing you've ever seen in your life? Well, you might want to be a banjo player as well. The only problem is banjos are a little bit different than guitars, at least until you get into the 6-string banjo territory. Today's video is all about this Washburn 6-string banjo, or banjotar, or ganjo, whatever you might call it. Today's video is all about this Washburn 6-string banjo. I'm going to show you a little bit about this banjo. I've been using it for years now, explain kind of the situations that I'm using it, some of the things I like about it, and the things that I don't like about it as well. If any of this content is interesting to you, hit the subscribe button. The channel is all about practical tips and advice for guitar players. With all that being said, let's get started with the video. Now, the first thing when it comes to this Washburn 6-string banjo is the price. So this banjo comes in right under $500, which is a pretty good price point. I didn't want to get something that was necessarily a toy, but I know that I'm only using this on rare occasions. Sometimes we're doing some bluegrass type music at church, or I might just want to have it on recordings every now and then. So a 6-string banjo is a good way to go. Just be aware that there are many different price points out there for 6-string banjos, and just like any instrument, you can delve deep into the world of banjo if you're not too careful. All that being said, I do think this is a good quality instrument. This is not going to keep you from getting the results that you're looking for if you're just wanting something to transition from a 6-string guitar into the banjo world. This definitely is going to give you the sound of a banjo. There's nothing particularly super magnificent about the headstock or the materials on the neck. One thing that may surprise you is how they have the saddle or the bridge set up here on the banjo. So when you get this thing, it usually comes in a box, and this piece right here is actually only being held down by the tension of the strings. This part here, you can move it all over the place. So one of the first things you're going to want to do is get out your measuring tape. Make sure you do a proper measurement from the nut of your guitar to the distance where this is. There's a very specific calculation so that the intonation, or how the tuning of your instrument is going up and down the neck, you want to make sure that's just right. So this piece here needs to be a very specific distance between the nut and itself. Otherwise, as you're playing up and down the guitar neck, if you start going up higher and higher frets on the neck, you start to get more and more out of tune. So make sure you've got it intonated correctly. The next thing that apparently is kind of a differentiation among banjos is whether it's open or closed back. So this, of course, is an open back banjo. There's no back to this instrument. The only thing I've noticed when it comes to this is that when I am playing and I'm in the standing position, so at church, if I'm playing this banjo, if it hits my stomach in just the right way, it basically muffles itself. So really, when you're playing this banjo, if you can be seated in a stool and you can place it between your two legs, you might have better results with this. Otherwise, if you do decide to put a strap on it, so you can play it more similar like a guitar and you're standing, just be aware of how your body is either choking or muting the banjo, or if you pull it away from your body, you can let it resonate a little bit more. So hindsight 2020, maybe a more expensive banjo would be one that has a closed back, but I'm usually putting a microphone on this banjo when I'm using it live. So I don't necessarily need the back of it to resonate. That might actually cause more problems for me on stage. I would probably prefer that this be a closed back banjo. And then I usually have a microphone either placed somewhere up here, or I'll use a clip-on microphone. Now, there are no guitar straps. I don't know if you can see on this. All right, the way that I've got this one situated is basically just some wire I had laying around. So I've got a regular guitar strap. I've run the wire through the little tuning poles on the side. I'm not sure what the correct term is for these, but that's basically holding my strap on. And then on the other end, I've done the same thing. I just took some wire, ran it through. This is what works for me. Again, this isn't an instrument that I'm playing on a regular basis. I just needed something that I could put a strap on. This thing pretty much stays the whole time. Now, another thing, like I mentioned before, I'm miking up this banjo whenever I'm playing it, and that's because there's no pickup. Of course, I can add a pickup later on if I'd like to. In fact, we just had an incident this morning. There's so much feedback coming from the microphone that you're hearing this really high-pitched. Banjos tend to have very harsh frequencies the higher you go. So if you put something like a vocal mic on any of these banjos, you might have feedback issues. Of course, getting yourself a pickup would be the way to go. But let me just play a little bit on this banjo. So now we can talk about, rather than the build quality, we can talk about how this transfers from a guitar into a banjo. As you can see, there are 6 strings, and right now I've got it tuned to E, A, D, G, B, E, same that you would find on an acoustic guitar. I'm going to play through some examples just so you can hear it in standard tuning. You'll hear some different ways that I like to pick personally. Now, tuning wise, of course, you can go all over the place with this banjo. You don't have to play it just like a 6-string guitar. You can do tunings such as D, G, D on your low strings. That'll give you certainly that banjo sound. Now, banjo will typically have a higher octave G near where we are expecting a lower string to be. That's what gives the banjo a very distinct sound. You can kind of recreate a little bit of this effect, but you're gonna have to make your low strings D, G, and D. That'll give you that 1 and 5 G and D bouncing back and forth, kind of like your bass line. Everything else you can do up and down the neck. This is meant to be kind of a transitional instrument. So if you're a guitar player, you want to get that banjo sound on your recordings, or you want to get that banjo sound at your church or within your band, of course, go with the 6-string banjo route. Again, I'd probably look for something that had a closed back. Maybe you want to look for something as well that has a pickup installed. Of course, you can put any number of pickups, maybe on the inside, something like that in the future. I'll be covering that in future videos, anything I'm doing to kind of upgrade this instrument. If you enjoyed the video, please hit the subscribe button. If you're already subscribed, hit the like button, and I'll see you next time. Thanks for watching.